Good morning. It's pretty sweet. I get to open the show, or the event, or whatever this is called. My name is Amy J, and I'm going to play a song from my new album that I put out in February, recorded at Mason Jar Music in Brooklyn. So hope you enjoy. It's called Lucid Dreaming. Prism of light through the tunnel, infinite alleyway, mirrored room or deja vu, infinite tally, lucid dreaming. Guess I'm having one of those days. Sunscreen and cigarettes, smells like childhood birthdays. Sunshine, silhouettes, arms afloat and drifting smoke. Back when innocence meant endless time and simple truth. Nothing's making sense. Beauty defined, obsessed with youth, we all lose time. Set the clocks back, find ancient wisdom, but never face that contradiction. Lucid dreaming, guess I'm having one of those days. Sunscreen and cigarettes, smells like childhood birthdays. Sunshine, silhouettes, arms afloat and drifting smoke. Back when innocence meant endless time and simple truth. Nothing's making sense. Nothing's making sense. Nothing's making sense. Lucid dreaming, guess I'm having one of those days. Sunscreen and cigarettes, smells like childhood birthdays. Sunshine, silhouettes, arms afloat and drifting smoke. Back when innocence meant endless time and simple truth. Nothing's making sense. Nothing's making sense. Nothing's making sense. Thank you.
It's just really wonderful to be in person again. And I also want to welcome everyone on Livestream. This is a new thing that we started because, once we said we're going back to IRL, a lot of the people that have been tuning in from around the world, they were like, well, wait a second, we still want to be part of this. So here we are live streaming, and we're so happy you're here, even virtually. And how amazing is this venue? I'm losing it a little bit, to be honest. This is our first time being hosted by New Lab, which came about in a really funny way. I tweeted that we're looking for new venues because, a lot of our contacts during the pandemic, they can no longer host us, previous venues, and I was like, oof, I'm venue hunting. And my friend Duke, who lives in California, tweets at me and is like, do you want to come bring it to New Lab? And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. You're in California. New Lab is 10 minutes away from my house. And he's like, yeah, I'm the chief brand officer. Is that his title? Yeah, at New Lab. So anyway, old connections brought us here, which makes me so happy. And I must say, Maria and Cody, their whole team has been such a delight to put this on. It feels like driving a Rolls Royce with you, to be honest. And then I shout out to Urash, our AV guy, who is really putting this to the next level in terms of how luxurious this feels. So New Lab, we really love you. And in case you have no idea what New Lab is, and you're kind of sitting here going, well, what is happening here? They opened here in the Navy Yard in 2016 and transformed this old naval machine shop into a 84,000 square foot Center for Applied Innovation. And the cool thing is there's over 200 companies here and over 900 entrepreneurs. And cool fun fact, this is going to be in the follow-up email. This spring, they launched a creative residency program for artists, designers, and storytellers who are interested in the intersection of technology, creativity, and impact. And I probably have a feeling some of you might have perked up right now. So look that up, and thank you, New Lab. Thank you, Maria. Okay, every month at every event, we read the Creative Mornings Manifesto. It really shines a light on our values and kind of reminds us why we're doing what we're doing. And every month we have a remarkable human from our community read the manifesto. And today that is Krista McDonald, who recently joined us, the small but mighty HQ team, as our partnerships manager. So if you are working at a company or own a company that wants to partner with us, Krista is the person to talk to. Krista, you want to come up?
Thank you so much, Tina. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others in hugs and high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Krista. All right, raise your hand if this is your first, oh, I was saying we do this, and now you have to do it. Thank you. See, New Lab is so on it. Raise your hand if this is your first Creative Mornings. This is so, I'm really excited. My landlady is here. Hi, Maria Dell. Yeah, if you want, come up to me afterwards, tell me how it was. We hope you come back, and we're so happy you found us. And a lot of the first-timers actually don't realize that we're happening all around the world, and not just in New York City. We're actually happening in 223 cities and 67 countries. And the really amazing fact is that I still can barely believe is that we actually grew during the pandemic by 16 chapters in the last 2 years, which is a real testament to the resilience of this community. And some of the latest chapters are Novosibirsk, Ribeirão Preto, Klaipėda, Bodrum, and Amritsar. And we gather 27,000 people every month, which is just a really remarkable, beautiful number to just remind myself every now and then. On a sadder note, we also have 3 chapters in the Ukraine, and our hearts are going out to them. We're in touch with them on a regular basis and trying to, and we're just a bit at a loss at what we can do for them. We've done call-outs where they told us what organizations to support, and at this point, we just wanted to send a bit of a cheer and that we're thinking of them. So if you would just entertain me and do a little heart thing above your head for the next 10 seconds, and Kyle is going to take a photo, and I'm going to take a photo. Oh my God, I'm going to start crying. All right. Oh my God, this makes me so happy. Oh, thank you. I'm going to send it to the hosts after the event, and just with a heartfelt note. Thank you. Okay, so you might be wondering, how in the world is this thing, how does this exist in the world, and why is it free? How does this even work? Well, it's because of the generosity of venues like New Lab, because of the generosity of our volunteers that help us put these events on, and because of the generosity of our speakers and companies that believe in the creative community meeting up, companies that give a damn, like our local partner, Harvest, for example. Harvest sponsors our breakfast and coffee every month, and just like us, they're a New York City-based company, and they're our favorite time tracking software. So back in the days when I was a designer, I hated time tracking. I wish Harvest would have been on my radar. If you have to time track, check them out. And there's a really cool thing they recently launched. While it might not be the first thing you think of when it comes to the time management skills, mindfulness actually plays a huge role in it, in managing distraction, and they actually have some mindfulness techniques they feature on their website. The URL is getharvest.com/resource. It's really lovely. And then we have a global partner, MailChimp. My team and I here, we don't just run the New York City chapter, we actually run the global organization at large, and make sure that the new hosts have what they need, that the existing hosts, we can help them troubleshoot, that you can watch the talks, etc. And the reason I can have a staff is because we have global partners like MailChimp. And MailChimp, for those of you who have been coming for years, at this point, it's so funny. It's like MailChimp and CreativeMornings are just melded together because they've supported us since 2008. When we were one chapter, and they have supported us ever since, and our organizations have grown together, which is really beautiful. And they started out as an email marketing platform, an all-in-one marketing platform, and they're just really, really good people. And for those of you that are into their MailChimp & Co. benchmark report, you might want to know it's out. It's more than 2,000 freelancers and 63 agencies have provided insight into how to win more business, find and retain top talent, mitigate risk, and et cetera. Like if you're in the business world, these are all things that might be helpful to you, so look it up. Are you still with me? Cool. Now this is my favorite, which we couldn't do during the Zoom time, so we're gonna play the stand-up if game. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna project some statements to the screen. Please be honest. If it applies to you, get up. If you for some reason can't get up, just raise your arms. All right. Stand up if you're not a morning person, yet you got yourself here this early on a Friday morning. I applaud you. Thank you. All right, stand up if you love books. Yes. Stand up if you own a stack of unread books, yet you keep buying new ones. I'm not alone. This is great. Actually, the Japanese have a term for this. It's called tsundoku. It's a word that defines the habit of collecting stacks of books that you haven't read and might never read. Stand or keep standing if you own a library card. Oh, so many of you. Let's tell the public library to host us, no? Good. Stand up if you are currently writing or you have written a book. Damn. Okay, raise your hand of those of you standing if it's fiction. Oh my God. Can we make a little huddle afterwards when the event is over and you tell us what books you've written? Because I want to know. Okay. Stand up if your profession has to do with books. Designer, publisher, what is it? Kickstarter. Designer?
Arts and letters journalist.
Amazing. Oh, there's so much book tie-in here. Thank you for playing. All right, so when we announce events, my favorite thing to do once registration opens is, in case you don't know, but there's a button that says, see who's attending. And then I scroll through all your beautiful faces, and I get really excited, and I click through the profiles, and then see what you guys are doing. And for example, I noticed that Kelly Anderson is here. She's a former speaker. She's one of the most creative people I've ever met. And then I noticed a trend. There's a lot of you, like Danielle, who has a quirky, cool profile photo. So does Maria Isabel, and also Heidi. But then you know what? I get really worried. I really do lay in bed at night sometimes and think all those people who have those really cool avatars, like profile photos, but what if you had a really good conversation at coffee? And who knows, maybe it might have been the love of your life, or maybe your future boss who wants to hire you and they go and try to look you up and they can't find you because you're a Lego structure. So while I applaud your creativity, I also just am really concerned you have like some missed connections going on. And then I don't even want to talk about the people who never uploaded a photo and are a freaking croissant. So if you're a croissant, please go home, please upload a photo. Okay, good. So this month's theme is now. It was picked by our Buffalo chapter, and Mizin Jin illustrated it, and MailChimp is the presenting partner. I am so excited to introduce today's speaker, Dev Aujla. Dev is a curiosity-driven human like no other, and his secret is reading. He is the CEO of Bodhi, a luxury menswear brand with stores in New York City and Los Angeles. He's also the author of 2 books, Making Good, Finding Meaning, Money, and Community in a Changing World, and 50 Ways to Get a Job, an unconventional guide to finding work on your terms, which were both published by Penguin. Dev is the creator of an organization dedicated to promoting and preserving libraries called Sorted Library. We will hear more about that. And he is currently building a 50,000 book collection, which will be housed at a permanent site that was recently acquired in Norfolk, Connecticut. Let's extend a really warm welcome to Dev.
Thank you for having me. Let's see. My name is Dev, and there we go. And I advise and run a number of creative artist-run businesses. Bodhi, Green River Project, Juxtapose, and Sorted Library, which is my organization that I started all about preserving and promoting private libraries. And I'm just so grateful to be here getting to talk about books and reading, because it's actually how I end up doing everything that I do. And it's the thing that's behind the scenes that only my close friends really are the people I talk to about it. And today, I get to bring it to all of you. So, reading as a way of living. So we were taught to read in this way from schools that is really kind of horrible. It's like we are memorizing the book, given to us, we don't really choose it, and then we try to summarize it all, regurgitate it, get the few bullet points, and then the next morning, bring it to the page, spit it out, and kind of forget about it. And in our business life, we often actually read the same way. So we are reading either like a 1,500-word magazine article, a 50,000-word book, and we kind of do the same thing. We take it in, read it. Sometimes you're reading quickly if it's a business book. Entertainment, a little bit different, all good, but you're just kind of summarizing it, bringing it back down, trying to bring it down to a 200-word conversation maybe over a dinner, and then maybe the next day you're at the office, and if you're really good, you might tweet it out in 140 characters. And it's the same energy, and it feels honestly so reductive, such a shame, that somebody's work is just brought all the way down, and all our whole task is just to understand exactly what they're saying, summarize it, and simplify it. When I look at books, I think about it that every book is 2 years of work for that author, at minimum. That's the bare bones, even if you're writing really quickly and you're researching, most of the time it's 11 or 12 years, or it's a whole lifetime of work. All leads up to this book. This is my library at home. This was taken yesterday. And there's probably, I know, there's around 1,100 books here. And whenever I see this, I just think to myself, 1,100 is 2,200 years of human labor, of thought. That if I was to look at this in the morning and I'm like, if there was one person that was sitting there, that would have gone back, they would have had to start when Cleopatra was reigning Egypt in order to produce what I bought $20 for a book, or $1 at a library book sale. It's completely grounding and like honoring. And when I see these shelves, I have this metaphor that I use, which is kind of the baseline thing that I understand, that you need to understand in order to read a different way. And that is, you think about a book as a room. So each book is a room that you walk into and you feel something different. There's some books that feel like churches, that are more reflective or calm or spiritual. There's others that have big windows that enable you to see further, see into a place you've never seen. There's others that are filled with other books, and those are the books that you end up with a long list of things to research, to follow. But each room, you feel something different depending on the quality. And we know this in our gut. Like, we actually really understand what it means to think differently when you're in a space like New Lab here than when you walk into a small, tight bar. You think something different. You feel something different. And I look at my library in the morning and I think to myself, like, 2,000 different or 1,100 different rooms that I could walk into. 1,100 different things that I could feel, different ways that I could feel, and I show up differently in each of those rooms. So what do you do? What do you do with all those rooms? And how does this tie to reading is living? So there's three ways of reading that I kind of want to talk about that are a little bit different than the way that we've learned. The first one is reading books as a trampoline for the imagination. So this is a quote that I just read last week by this fellow named Roger Grenier, who's like a publisher, French writer. And he said, books are a trampoline for your imagination, which is just like this amazing metaphor. It's just like, you're just bouncing into new places, you know? And there's the pithy quote of like, you can only see as far as the headlights, but you can drive across the whole country that way. You know, that's kind of like our imagination. Our imagination works that way. We can kind of like imagine the future, but we really only imagine what we've seen of our friends. We only imagine what, you know, just a little bit further, but we can't really see something different until we go somewhere else or in a different room. And when you think about books as a room, you actually have to do something different when you're in there. And that is, you have to ignore the writer. So you pick up a book, you enter this new space, and now forget about what they are talking about. You are not trying to understand. You are not trying to make sure you get to the real truth of it. You're there to witness yourself in their space. Ignore the writer. And that's what will actually enable you to pay attention to your imagination in this new space and dream and think further. It's almost like you're seeing who you are amidst a new place. And there's 2,000 or 1,100 new places right so easily accessible. And you don't know where you're going to end up when you start thinking like this. Oftentimes, honestly, my marginalia, like what I am writing in the margins of the books, is so disconnected from what the book is about. Like, I'll be flipping through, and it's a completely different idea that has nothing to do, but somehow something jostled free in my mind. Just being there, just reading the page, and that idea just arrives. It's kind of like an act of faith. So these magazines here, let me talk about these. So this is a bunch of different rooms or different books that I absolutely loved my own thoughts when I started reading them. So I started with the Whole Earth catalog, which is up there, sort of in the back. And we just recently acquired this land. So I was thinking about land, and I was thinking about what room would I want to walk into, and how would I want to think about owning and tending to land and property. And so I started with Whole Earth catalog, and it led me to these other places, and I found this magazine called Country Woman Magazine, which is almost like a feminist response to the Whole Earth catalog, 1970s, communes, California. And I loved my thoughts when I was reading these. They were grounded, I felt empowered, I felt like I could do it, that I could create things, that I could manage and tackle the problem. And so I took it even one step further. I found out that Country Woman Magazine was produced in a small town in California, and the actual site that it was produced on was initially a commune for a few years, but that it had been turned over to an artist, an LA-based artist who kept it going in a different form, and I could actually go there. And so I took it one step further, and I went with my wife, and we spent a week there with like an outhouse, shitting in a bucket, looking at the redwoods, and also chopping our own wood, but on the land. And I was there in the physical version of the book, just witnessing my own thoughts and thinking. And I left with one metaphor, which was a property is like a living organism. It's something that needs tending, it needs caring, it needs noticing, that there needs a walking, that there's no point of arrival, that there's no finish. It is about care. And I left with that metaphor, and it actually changed my way of thinking about our construction timelines. It changed the way that I thought about where we were going to arrive and when we were going to host people and how I was going to talk about it. And it, most importantly, changed how I was feeling about the whole prospect of building a library and doing a land-based project. And I never would have arrived there. I never would have arrived to that idea if I hadn't trusted my ability to walk into a room and pay attention to my own thoughts. The second way of reading is read books to sustain inquiry. We're taught to answer quickly. It's kind of the world we live in right now. You know, you have a question, we go to Google, we quickly find the answer. Great, got it, know when that person was born, awesome, move on, next thing. But something is different. There's a different quality to the answers we receive when we hold a question. It's almost like an embodied way of knowing. It's like it actually seeps into our actual way of living. When we just don't rely on that first answer, don't just accept that the first answer is everything, and we hold on to a question. In fact, it happens in the world today. So it happens in art and academia all the time in the best case scenarios. You know, artists seeking context, understanding that there's always work that comes before, that they are always one in a series of people that have addressed the same question. In academia, people hold questions over the course of years. But in the business world, we don't do it. We're often hold a question until we get paid, or until we find out it's not efficient enough, that we found a good enough answer to move on to the next thing. And what happens when you slow it down and slow down your ability to arrive at an answer is you end up realizing different directions that you can follow momentum. And I started noticing how momentum and holding a question are related to each other through a practice that I've had, which was building a course pack. So I've done this since 2005. So I started with magazine articles when I used to read magazines and not the internet. And I would cut magazine articles out, throw them in a drawer, and then once a year, I would like take all the magazine articles, usually around Christmas time when I was sitting at home, and I would be like, photocopy them all and turn them into a course pack. And then as obviously I moved away from reading magazines, I created a thing called course pack folder in my favorites. I'd add articles I loved, and then I printed all those articles out and got them bound. So this was 2010 to 2013 from the internet. And what I started noticing was that holding a question doesn't mean holding one question. It means paying attention to, as the question shifts, you're following a trajectory. And just putting people in these books, I realized all these threads in my life, and I would meet people that I never would have remembered. You know, you like read an article about somebody, and like it's done, you're on to the next link, it's done. But then me slowing it down, putting it into this course pack, enabled me to remember. I was like, oh, you're the person in my book. You're the person that I put in this course pack. And I would actually be able to meet people, I would see different opportunities, and I would understand and recognize different threads in my own life. Today, I have, this is probably one of the most exciting things that I've currently done with a little more resources that I have access to now. This is everything I've read on the internet in the last 5 years, and I actually got it laid out fully in book format, which I'm gonna publish for myself, but because the copyright's obviously totally impossible. Here's a French ornithologist and composer. That's their Wikipedia page. But it is like amazing to see. You know, it is like absolutely, this is about 1,000 pages of the internet over the last 5 years. And just to experience what it's like now to have the internet on my shelf and choose that as a room that I get to go walk into and consider on any given morning. And when you hold a question for that long, the other thing that happens is it gives you a sense of faith. A faith that comes from knowing that there is a long line of people that have come before me that have asked the same question and arrived at maybe the same answer, but dramatically different answers as well. That I am always connected to people that have come before me, to thinkers and ideas and art and books that have come before me. And it is so grounding and so affirming. It changes how I act in business every single day, because we live in a world that is constantly new, where there's constantly new things, new opportunities, and everyone is standing from a place of new. But to know inside that nothing is ever new, that these questions are old, enables you to sit in the face of that and answer in a very detached, grounded way. The third and final way, oh my gosh. I got one more thing to say about this, I forgot. So I wanted to tell you about holding a question, so time. So I got really involved in time. This is an example of holding a question and how it actually translated into a business that I'm working on. So I was thinking about time pre-pandemic, like how do we change our philosophical relationship to time? What does it mean? How do we move through it? And I spent 2 years reading all these time books. I went to the Greenwich Mean Line in England to like see what I thought when I was there. And I just dove into time-related things and chose all kinds of different rooms to walk into. And then during this, I decided that it wasn't gonna be a book that was the outcome of it. It was actually, I met this guy that was starting a clock company, or had a clock company. But it wasn't a normal clock. It was a kind of clock that changed your relationship to time. And it worked. It worked on me, and I was like, oh my God, right away, this is the thing I need to do. So I scrapped the book idea, and I decided to invest and play an operational role in helping this guy bring this clock to the world. And I can't tell you about it yet because it's not quite out there in the world yet. But it is like, I would never have been so decisive. There is no way that if I had read one book on time, or Googled the history of time, or read any single one of these individual books, I would have just like, oh, interesting, great, and left. But then when I met this guy, by a chance encounter, I was like, this is it. And I knew right away that this was a thing that I needed to help bring to the world. And so I did, and I am. And it changed the actual business decision that I'm making, or the business that I'm investing in and working with. So, number 3, having faith in the mind as a combining machine. So the mind as a combining machine was a line from a Nicholas Carr, The Shallows. He wrote the book The Shallows. And it was one line in there, and he says, our brains are combining machines. They're able to take two diverse ideas and bring them together. And I love that. And I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read that line. Because it just takes trust. It takes trust that you can read really, really broadly. Like, you're not trying to read for what you think you want to know. You're trying to read to put things into your mind and see and trust and take a back seat and let your mind do the work of combining these ideas. Sometimes you enter a room where you don't even understand what's going on. You know, it's like you cannot figure it out. Like people are speaking a different language. And in those cases, it's the same feeling. It's like you're stepping back, maybe yawn, make yourself feel comfortable. Slowly, you start to understand, you pick up a few things that are going on, and you pay attention to your own thoughts. So there was this one book that I read recently, Principles of Cerebral Mechanics. And so this guy, like 1800s, inventor, everything he wrote was kind of disproven, like not exactly like, not relevant. It was like kind of about, like he was trying to understand how our eyes work. Like just to give you a sense here, this is the beginning of a chapter, you are not missing any context. In order to proceed to the construction of systems by their functions, and because specific perception comes first, we must begin by determining the exact correlations between perceived species. You know, it's like that. It's like just goes on. And it's like does not like resolve itself, you know? In fact, the book, he didn't even finish writing. It just ends with ... like mid-sentence. And, but I sat with the book and I read the words he wrote and I sat in his room and I left with this idea that there are two ways of solving a creative problem. You know, there's from the facts that you have and then building your way up, and then from a total fictional standpoint and then building your way back down, which is what he was doing. And I applied that idea, that simple idea, which was not what he was saying, but it came up, it became apparent to me when I was paying attention to my own thoughts, and I applied that idea at work the next day. But that took an act of trust. It took a real act of faith. Because what you actually control is what you put in. That's it. You control how diverse the information you decide to put into your mind. And you control the energy of that information. So what you are choosing, why I picked up this book, how it came into my life, and why I decided to put it in. You control that. And this is why I absolutely love private libraries. Because private libraries make visible somebody's world. They make visible the rooms they chose to walk in, the thoughts, the background to their thinking. And these are some that Rogers Library in Arco Santi was like one of the original members of Arco Santi, and you walk in and you feel the books that are both related to the landscape of the place and also like his love of sports. It's totally just the background to someone's living. Sitter work is St. Gallen, which was at an artist foundry, which is a private library at Artist Foundry. And this is Larry McMurdy's library in Archer City, Texas, which is one I really want to go to one day. But private libraries have this ability for us to interact. So that's why I started Sorted Library, to preserve and promote it. So the cards that you wrote if you did the book swap, are just one small way that we help people interact with them. So instead of going to a library and just taking pictures and like, wow, this is a nice space. You know, what do I do here? What we do is have these cards, so you're going and you're asking a question that you have within their context. You're searching for your answer within their library. And some of the collections that we work with, some of the people we now have had hundreds of people do this exercise. And we actually take on creatives' estates and we'll make catalogs. So we're working on producing our first catalogs of all the books that they had. So if we can't preserve and actually keep all the books they had, at least there's a catalog of the books that they had for the next generation. Some way to search within their context. I really hope that after talking about reading as living, that you pick up a book and you enter someone else's room. I hope that you pay attention to your own thoughts. I hope that you get to build a library for yourself that is 1,000 rooms wide. Because every single morning when I wake up and I see my books, I feel this absolute sense of both groundedness and possibility. And I know that it will give you everything that you need. The question, the faith, the direction you go, and whatever comes out of that tremendous mix, I hope will be your next great work. Thank you guys so much.
Wow, Dev, as a book lover. Oh, did I turn it off? Hello? Good. No, as a book lover, just made my heart sing. What a thoughtful, beautiful talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Seriously, like there's some talks that you just, yep, I had to get up to hear this today. This is weird. Is it me? No? Okay. We're going to do Q&A. I know some of you are burning with questions. I can see it in your eyes. See? There we go.
Dev, I had a question for you as an entrepreneur, a kind of practical question of the projects you're doing in the library you're building in Norfolk. But before your talk is so inspiring, I'd have to say, tomorrow evening, the Brooklyn Public Library is reviving its Night of Philosophy and Ideas from 7 p.m. till midnight. And it's too late for this to happen now, but you totally need to be a speaker at that event. And maybe next year that could happen. Now, back to the question. On a practical basis, for many of us in New York City apartments who share your affection for books, who own too many books, Tina, I love that Japanese word about buy books, even though you may not read them. A lot of us have that affliction, I certainly do. And how could we, in a way that is productive to society, decide to de-accession the books so we can live in our apartments and give them to somebody else on a more organized and sensible and productive manner?
Well, let me tell you what happened when I went by and bought my first bunch of books. There was the bookstore closing down. I had this opportunity to go there, and I didn't really know, so I went there every single night for 30 days and just kind of squirreled away books in a corner. I ended up with 1,500 books, and I took all these books. And I was like, come on, I don't know, what are you gonna do with them? I got them all into my apartment, and there was 100 boxes or so of books. And my brother came over, and they were just stacked there. My bed was on one side, and my brother came over, who's like in interior design, construction, and stuff, and he was like, there's a crack between your window frame and the ceiling. Like, that's not good. And like, we moved all these, like, and their floor had sunk like by an inch between the baseboard because I had put them all in one corner. And so then we moved them all around. But I knew when I bought those books that books have a gravity to them and that they were gonna pull me in some way, not either the apartment down or me forward, I didn't know which, but they were gonna do something for me. And that is what pushed me to like basically get sorted library going. So I am not the right person to ask. Yes.
Obviously, you put a lot of importance in printing books, right? You're printing your part of the internet.
Yeah.
In the age of Kindle and digital books, what is your relationship with non-physical books?
I like physical books. Also, like physical books are not dying off. You know, like the Kindle and all e-reading went, and then it just kind of plateaued and it stayed there. And so it hasn't really been an issue. You know, like also it's a personal decision. Like whatever way you read, whatever way you can get yourself to think and be in a different place, to witness your own thoughts amongst a different idea, that's good. You know, I don't care. You know, just I want you to think more, and I want you to notice more, and I want you to pay attention more. And so I personally love writing in the margins, no matter how much I like using my books. And so I like seeing them on the shelf so that I get to see them and remember what room and choose which direction I go. But that's me. And so I have nothing against the e-reading world or the internet in general.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. I certainly enjoyed it. And I have to preface by saying I'm a children's author, so there's a certain bias inherent in my question. And the assumption when you show a book is that someone is able to read. And in New York City, 65% of the children don't read at grade level.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you get people to the point where they can read those books? And what are the kinds of mechanisms and ways that, you know, reading determines your income, it determines your life path, it determines so many things. So there's economic, psychological, all kinds of implications to reading. Yeah. And I love what you did, but I guess I want to make it more complex in terms of understanding the reality of reading and the impact it has on children, because to read those books, they have to be able to read.
Right, and you know what? Actually, at the grounding of what I spoke about, reading as a way of living, is you can actually sub out reading for anything. It could be looking at art as a way of living. It could be walking into a space and understanding yourself. Because actually what I'm talking about is paying attention and honoring and giving value to your own feelings and thoughts. And then putting yourself in situations where you think about and feel different things. And that is actually accessible to us all at all ages. And whether it's children's books that are largely picture-driven, and the person reading that children's book gives people space to imagine and think, or to just flip and look and not turn the page quickly enough, but to live in that page, in those colors, in that moment, to allow a child's imagination to fill in the details, to let their mind go to wherever it goes. That it's a way of living, and it's a way of paying attention. And that's what I advocate for, and that is not to negate all the social issues that need to be addressed in order to make literacy something that is both accessible and enabling for cross-class, cross-race, every diaspora that we have. It's like, that is true. And this way of paying attention is also true. And I think it's hard. You know, I don't think there's an easy answer, but I do know that that level and quality of attention is accessible, and is something that we can all bring ourselves to those around us, to moments where we can step in first.
Hey, Dev. Oh, hello.
Hi.
I'm Taylor. Nice to meet you.
Oh.
Cool. Hi. Loved the talk, and I also think a lot about these rooms, and so I just love the way that you framed that. I don't know if anyone here has read the Midnight Library, but I'm excited for the blog post where I'm tying that together with the Midnight Library and everything that you talked about. And I was curious, in your words, if you've ever left a room mid-reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, of course, you know. But, you know, of course, sometimes I get everything I need from it. You know, there's like, that's totally fine. I feel totally resolved with that. I also feel like, you know, there's a momentum to reading in general, if we're talking about just like, sometimes you gotta read a short book, get a couple short books under your belt, and then you're like off to the races, tackle something a little bit bigger. You know, I think, and like sometimes you just need to give yourself permission to not continue. And that goes back to asking yourself the question, and this is the part that we don't do often enough, which is just stopping and saying, what do I need right now? What do I need to feel right now? Where do I need to think right now? And then being still enough and quiet enough to hear what's actually true. And hearing what's true that's going past, oh, I need to finish this book because I'm a person that starts and finishes this book, to like, I need something light and comforting, something I've read before. I'm going to read The Adventures of Dr. Dolittle, or whatever.
There's one more question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for the talk, Dev. My question revolves around the idea you brought up about public or private libraries, and I said you love the way people curate it and what it means to them. I'd love to hear your take about what the purpose of a private library is versus the purpose of public libraries.
Yeah, I mean, I think private libraries are like really eccentric because they're like individual, you know, like they're like a mirror of an individual's minds, and they aren't, they're often not created with a foresight. They're created in like, as a result of a life lived. And public libraries are created with a lot of planning. They're created with foresight about who's going to access them, what kind of collections they're going to, what they're going to acquire, what they're going to collect. A library takes a much bigger role in society as a public library, a place to access services, a place to cross cultures, cross class, to get information, to level the field. So public libraries have like a tremendous role in our public sphere. Private libraries, they're a different thing. It's more like almost like an accidental art practice that somebody has, that are totally enjoyable, and it feels like a total privilege. It is a total privilege to have, and you know, I love the idea of making those accessible, even in small moments, or championing the idea of even having a small collection. A library doesn't need to be thousands of books. A library can be 1, 2 books that you love, that you go to, that you keep with you, that you carry from place to place, that make you feel grounded and make you feel like you.
I just told Dev that this is probably my favorite talk in Creative Mornings history. And I have a 16-year-old daughter who's in high school, and I've been texting her some of the quotes that you said, and she is just cry emoji after cry emoji, because she really wanted to be here, but she had a math test and she couldn't. So I know what we're doing tonight. We're watching the live stream. Thank you, Dev. This was wonderful. What a gift you've given us. I want to close out by saying a big thank you to our volunteers. Cece, Melanie, Maria, Frederick, and Peter, we love you. We couldn't do this without you. If you want to volunteer, come up to us, to one of our members of HQ. I want to thank Connie for recording our talks. Where is she? There she is. Connie, you're the best. So we can watch them again. And Sana, who's been taking photos today. Sana was a member in the which chapter? San Francisco. And it's so amazing, and now she's here and she's volunteering here. This is wonderful. I want to thank my HQ team. They're just the best humans ever. Kyle, Casey, Amanda, Krista, Annie, Patrick, and Alexa. And I want to say goodbye to Millen, who this is her last day today. But that also means we're hiring a support coordinator. If being part of Creative Mornings HQ will make your heart sing, and you are really into helping people, you're a problem solver, you should look up the job posting on the Creative Mornings job board, and it will be in the follow-up email. And I want to just thank the New Lab team one more time. You are wonderful. This was incredible. Thank you, Cody, Maria, Duke, Narosh, and we would definitely come back if you want us. And if you loved this morning, I want to personally make a recommendation for an upcoming event at BAM. Raise your arm if you've ever been at a pop-up magazine event. Raise both your arms if you loved it. It's like one of the most wonderful, heart-opening experiences. It's literally a magazine come to life. They're going to be at BAM on June 2nd. I will be there. I can't wait. I bought the tickets the minute they come on sale. And in the follow-up email, there's a small discount code if you want to. We love them. They're just a sister organization that we love and support. And I always leave you with a quote, and today's is, of course, around books and around reading. Reading is migratory, an act of transport from one life to another, one mind to another. Jenny C. Thank you for coming. See you next month. And let's turn the music on like we used to do in the Zoom. And if you want to wiggle out of here, please feel free. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dev.